Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Chris DeManche. I'm with the Orange County Planning Division. I work with the Comprehensive Planning section. I want to welcome you this evening to the community meeting for the property located at 8236 Conroy Windermere Road. This is an informational meeting, so tonight you're going to hear a brief presentation from staff. You're going to hear from the applicant, and then we'll open the floor for questions and comments. So we don't want to take too much time. We want to get to your comments and everything. We are allotted an hour, so I want to try to keep things condensed and moving forward. In addition to working with the Orange County Planning Division, I'm joined this evening by Jason Sorensen, who's with the current planning section. He's the branch chief over there. We also have Diana Almodovar with the county as well. I hope I didn't butcher your last name.
You got it.
Oh, you did okay.
All right. We have the applicant Allison Yurko, as well as Dr. Singh, and we're also joined this evening by Commissioner Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I just want to. I'm loud, so I'll just yell to the back. Thank you for being here. This is a community meeting, obviously, about a land use issue, and this typifies for me the reason I really love my community, because people really care. And to me, the process of this can be arduous. I think it can be very complex, but it doesn't deter my residents. I love that. So we will continue to be in touch. This is obviously for you, and for to be able to get all the information out and questions to be asked. And then from there, we'll continue to have a dialogue as the process moves along. If this is the first time you've seen my face and put it with my name, don't let it be the last. I really want to make sure that we stay in touch. If you can, drop me an email, district1@ocfl.net. We can get you signed up to get our newsletter updates and any other questions you have. And thank you for being here.
All right, thank you. Tonight really marks the first part of our public input process. Next Thursday, we have the first of two public hearings. At 9 a.m., we have the local planning agency hearing. This is on the agenda. I just got the agenda link, so if anyone is interested in receiving that, I'd be happy to email everyone on the list, provided their email is legible. So I'd be happy to provide that to them, as well as that link will also have a copy of the staff report as well. So if you're inclined to come, you'll have an opportunity to speak there as well. And then following the local planning agency hearing, the final hearing will be before the board. That date is to be determined at this point. So unfortunately, I don't have a date. We schedule those once we have that first hearing, and then the board gets us on the agenda. But I can't say that you will be notified, much like you were for this hearing for Thursday, as well as for the board's hearing. So, and then of course my name and phone number and email address is prominently placed on all of the community meeting notices that you all have received. So if you have questions or comments, or you wish to submit feedback, feel free to email me. You can fax it in as well. I'd be happy to provide a fax number, and then we'll kind of go from there. So why don't we get started? I'm going to run through staff's presentation, and then we'll jump in with the applicant. So tonight's community meeting is for two applications. The first is a small-scale future land use map amendment. It's SS 2204-030 and rezoning request RZ 2204-031. And of course, the applicant is Allison Yurko, representing Dr. Singh. The future land use map request is to change the applicant's future land use from rural settlement 1-to-1, which is RS 1-to-1. It allows one single family dwelling per 1 acre. They want to change that to office rural settlement. And the rezoning request is to go from RCE, which is our country estate district, to PO, which is the professional office district. The site is 1.54 acres. It's in District 1, and the proposed use for the land is veterinary clinic. This is just an outline of where we are in District 1, where the site's at, approximate location. And this is an aerial of the site. As you can see, it's on the south side of Conroy Windermere Road. It is within the Windermere Rural Settlement. And most of the properties around it, as you can see, single family. There is a county stormwater property to the west of this project site. This is the future land use map. This shows the current RS 1-to-1. Gives you an idea of the West Windermere rural settlement boundary line, which runs along the north and to the east of the project site. East of the site, we have LDR, which is our low density residential land use designation. That allows a density of up to 4 dwelling units per acre. And a little further east is our commercial future land use designation. And of course, this is what the applicant is proposing, to change the land use to office rural settlement. That's outlined. Zoning for the site is the RCE, as I mentioned. And there's largely RCE surrounding the site. And then to the east of the site, we have R1AA and R1A. Those are single family zoning districts. And of course, they're proposing professional office. We note restricted on there because if it is recommended for approval, we are recommending restrictions be placed on the site. And of course, we'll have those outlined in the staff report as well. And of course, our Planning and Zoning Commission hearing date is August 18th. And location will be at 201 South Roslyn Avenue in the board chamber. And then of course, I have Commissioner Wilson's email address. And then you're also welcome to email the mayor and the rest of the board as well if you have comments. And then here we are in the review process. We've already received the application, as you know. We're here at, well, I shouldn't say virtual meeting, but we're here at the community meeting. And then we'll be jumping to our first public hearing. And then of course, the last public hearing would be before the board. And that concludes me. Let's see if I can jump in. Let's see. This is escape. Oh, this is escape. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Allison Yurko. I'm a land use attorney. I am here representing Dr. Singh and his staff. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I wanted to introduce the team. We have Dr. Singh. Next to him is Kelly McIntyre, who is his office manager. And we have next to her, Steve Clack, who is with McCree Construction, and we have several other of our staff. They may be coming in as the presentation goes along. They have been very busy. They relocated to, they came to Windermere area in 2013 because there was a very significant need in this community for veterinary services. They do also have a practice in Longwood. They are currently renting space and are bursting at the seams right now with escalating rents, as you might imagine. So a couple of years ago, Dr. Singh bought this property. He has owned it for several years. And then more recently, he bought the property behind it, which is not part of this application, but he bought that as a buffer. So I just kind of wanted to give that to you in the way of background. And with that, I have a kind of a short PowerPoint presentation. So the site is very well buffered. It has a retention pond, a huge retention pond that spans about 6 lots on the westerly side. And this is that retention pond that's shown with from a couple of angles. The site, the triangle in blue is the Edmondson Lane and the 8 platted lots that are now owned by Dr. Singh. They are not part of this application. They were purchased as a buffer from the surrounding residential area. The site is also buffered by, as you know, a 6-lane arterial road to the north, which is Conroy Windermere Road. And then in the yellow shows you the very large pond. It's, you know, in the nature of a small lake almost. And then we have Cleveland Road to the east. So we recognize that this is in a residential area, and that is part of the reason why Dr. Singh made the investment after he bought the site to buy the property behind it, to be sure that it was extremely well buffered. Oops.
Excuse me, on that chart, the blue.
I think I just turned something off here.
That blue buffer that you were showing includes my property.
Thank you. Okay.
So I think that's an error in the way it's drawn.
Oh, okay, which, yeah, that's my property.
I think this is the, his up to here, I think.
Okay, so thank you for
This
correcting
is probably
that.
that.
Okay, so we stand corrected. It's 4 platted lots. I had thought it was 8. So nevertheless, there is a buffer there. So thank you for pointing that out. We'll make sure we correct that for next week's hearing. The site has adjacent roads to the east and the south, and this shows the angles of the Cleveland Avenue. It backs up against the backyard of the residences, and that's the fence area. And then this shows you the front part of Cleveland Avenue, and then the middle part. The property owner will meet or exceed all code buffer requirements. This is a conceptual plan. Once we get through the rezoning and the comprehensive plan, land use approval, we have to go through a whole nother process called commercial site plan review, which will be the nuances of exactly how the site plan will work, the drainage, the buffers, the access. But this is an approximation of what it would look like. The property owner is agreeable to a site layout and a residential architectural style to ensure compatibility with the rural settlement. You all, I'm sure, know more about the Windermere Rural Settlement than I do, but I've been studying it quite a bit lately. FLU 6.2.5 says that the permitted intensities are supposed to maintain their rural character. You have to look at lot size, open space and views, tree canopies, building location, and the orientation has to be compatible with existing uses. So 1.54 acres is a fairly large site for what we want to do, recognizing the importance of honoring that comprehensive plan policy. 6.2.9, only those commercial and office uses that will support existing residential uses are permitted. And this is extremely important here. Dr. Singh brought his practice to Windermere because Windermere needs vet services. And Kelly can talk more about this or if y'all have questions, but their practice has only become busier with the pandemic. We all recognized how much we love our pets more than ever with the pandemic. So the need is even greater, and the need to have a facility like this to service this area is very significant. And then FLU 6.2.10, it's a use that is to serve the rural settlement residences. And again, Kelly can give more detail, but my understanding is about 70% of their patients, and I say patients, I guess that means the critters, who by the way, about 1/3 of their critters are cats. Because we heard a lot about barking dogs, but a lot of their patients are cats. But these patients are coming from the rural settlement and the surrounding area.
Can you ask questions now, or do you want to wait?
If we could
Yeah,
wait,
wait,
I
yeah.
mean, just
No,
kind of,
no,
you
go
know, if that's okay. The site has ample room for parking, drainage, vehicular circulation and retention. They can have outdoor dog runs. That's required by code. So that is not going to ever happen. We're not asking for that. That's not on the table. And the owner is required to address any and all traffic and access issues. And a traffic study will be required before any building permits. And there's a possibility that the traffic study will, you know, again, it will inform how the traffic needs to be addressed. But we have Diane Almodovar here, and we did meet with her, and the traffic engineer folks are going to have to assess, once the traffic study is done, the best way to get trips in and out. We know that they want direct access onto Conroy Windermere, not using Cleveland Avenue. They want it as far away from Cleveland Avenue as possible. And there's a possibility that Dr. Singh will have to do a median improvement with the turn lane, and Diane can give more detail because she speaks engineer better than I do. I'm not an engineer, but that is something that will be required in the process. There will be a microscope put on that whole issue of access and and traffic management and trips and what has to be done. And that'll be the second part once we get through the land use approvals here. The request is for the owner's vet clinic, which provides services to the community in keeping with the rural settlement goals. And again, 6.2.10, uses shall contain personal services intended to serve the immediate population, and approximately 70% of their patients are from the area. The request is vital to this small business operation, and Dr. Singh is here, his staff is here. These are people that are in the front lines providing services that are, in our opinion, extremely important to this community. And again, they wouldn't be here at this lease location if there wasn't a need and a growing need to provide services to your community. The owner has made a significant investment in purchasing this property and the adjacent parcel. They have a commitment to this community and the area, and this will replace a leased facility that is several blocks away, rising rents and limited space. So it's not sustainable to continue to try to operate out of that cramped rented space where they are right now. And these are just a few pictures of their patients. They leased the leased clinic opened in 2013 due to the significant need in the area, which has only become increased. The project still has to go through full commercial site plan review after the rezoning and comprehensive policy approvals are granted. Traffic study will be required. The results will inform the exact access points and possible median improvements. And we are certainly open to discussing conditions with you all and the staff in terms of what we might need to do to address any concerns that you have today. This is a picture that shows the median area where we would potentially be needing to do some type of an access improvement. And again, Diane is here to answer specific questions about that. We don't exactly know yet until, again, once we get the approvals, what happens is Dr. Singh will have to pay for a very expensive traffic study that has very in-depth data about the number of trips, there's a distribution of trips and the peak PM trips and how they come and go. And then they talk to all the smart engineers from the county, and then they figure out what the requirements are going to be. And it's not going to be cheap. Again, Dr. Singh has already made a significant investment in this property and the surrounding property to buffer it. So that is going to be out there. That's a commitment that he's going to have to make, and he won't get any building permits for the building unless and until that is satisfied. And again, we really can't figure that out here tonight because it'll be a function of the exact square footage and the studies they do and that sort of thing. But I wanted to make you aware of that and let you know that we have really begun to dig into that issue. This kind of shows the site. You all are more familiar with this area than I am. The street is significantly built out. As you know, there are a number of residential neighborhoods. There are also a number of institutional uses, some commercial uses. Again, the veterinary clinic is one of those very unique type of uses that we believe is contemplated by the rural settlement. It is a historically agricultural type use. There's even language in the comp plan that talks about the intent is sort of to sustain the rural lifestyle and to have traditional agricultural uses. Vet clinics are permitted as a special exception in the agricultural zoning district. So it just sort of shows you the long-standing tradition of veterinary services and rural settlements. And then, the creation of the rural settlements recognizes the need to maintain agricultural areas and rural uses in the rural service areas while providing for rural communities. Only those commercial and office uses that will support existing residential uses are allowed. 6.2.10, the uses shall contain retail and personal services intended to service the immediate population. And retail, we are not asking for commercial use. This is an office use, but again, it's a type of personal service that is intended to service the immediate community. So with that, we are happy to now open this up for questions, and if you all have questions of me or Dr. Singh or whoever. So
Sure.
thank you.
We'll go one at a
Thank you,
time and-
staff.
I'll just take off. Could you go back to your presentation on the first slide there? Okay, go forward now. Next. Right there.
Okay.
So the first bullet there on FLU 6.1.5. No, I'm talking, let's go down to 6.2.9 Do you believe that this supports existing residential use? I guess it supports meaning services, but do you think this is consistent? Or, I'm sorry, let me go back up to the top, the second line now, compatible with existing land use. Do you believe that this is compatible with existing land use?
Well, I think you have to look at the type of service that's being provided for the community. We are willing to stipulate and even put this in a condition that the building will have an architectural style that fits in with a residential use.
It's the existing use.
And I come back to the importance of the buffer. And again, the blue box is too big, I apologize.
But you didn't answer my question. Is it consistent with the existing land use?
So I believe it is, or I wouldn't be here today. I think if you go to the map of Conroy Windermere Road and you look at the number of non-residential uses on Conroy Windermere Road, like a high school, like a middle school, CVS, the fact that you have a 6-lane arterial road does make this an unusual piece of property.
It's 4 lanes. It's not 6 lanes, it's 4 lanes.
Well, but there's the lane in the middle, so, I mean. It's a buffer. So, and again, that is going to be up to the Planning and Zoning Commission, but remember, compatibility is a determination that the Planning and Zoning Commission will make, but they will temper it with the policy requirement that this property, that the rural settlement is open to those businesses that have, personal services to accommodate the community, so.
Is the property, now you refer to the buffer zones, does that then change the zoning for the entire, or is there any kind of grandfather that these cannot be ever used for anything other than being a buffer zone?
So let's go back.
It's a residential, I want to build my house over there. It's a big lot, it's a residential lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to build my own house behind it, yeah. So it's a big lot. It's about an acre lot behind it.
Well, that's what you say now, but maybe in 2 years, you change your mind and you want to enlarge the office, so.
That's what happened in Longwood.
That's what happened in Longwood, so this whole buffer thing, which sounds great on paper right now, I don't buy it, because we could be here in 2 years, say, okay, that buffer zone, we'd like to enlarge the business, so.
So can I jump in to respond to that? Because I think it was a very good question on the buffer. So first of all, the county has a very large retention pond. That is part of their master drainage system. That's not going to change. We know that the Conroy Windermere Road is not going to get any narrower. It might get wider, but that's going to be a buffer. We know Cleveland Avenue is going to be a buffer. And as far as the lots that he owns, he is limited in terms of what he's allowed to do with that for purposes of the rural settlement. And to the extent that he ever wanted to come in later and expand, first of all, you have to remember how much we're going through right now just to get the 1.3 acre tract done. And it's going to have drainage and buffers and construction. There's a huge investment that goes in with the site plan. So I don't know that is a reasonable possibility, honestly, and
you don't know, but maybe in 2 years it's something that's proposed.
But
if
it did come up, it would have to be a start all over from scratch.
Right, like we're doing right now.
So I'll tell you candidly, if he were inclined to think, if anything, the size of the parcel is way bigger than what he needs. And that's part of what we're required to do in a rural settlement. We have to have the canopy of trees, the open views, we have to have extra space. So there is no issue about having to add to this site. I mean, he will probably get one house here and one house only. So, okay, sir, the gray t-shirt.
I think,
Yeah,
can we go to him? I think he had his hand up first.
okay,
Nobody used
sure,
it.
okay.
The buffer zone, I'm all in favor. I love dogs, and
Thank you. And
last
cats?
one, and now she's making me get another dog. My point is, that's fine buffer, great, and I appreciate you being there. However, I live off that chart, right next to it, at Wingrove Estates. There ain't no buffer there. Cleveland Road runs down there, and that's I don't even know what it is. I never, because it's a dirt road, I don't know what it is.
That's what it looks like.
Well, I understand that, and I drive by it every day.
Yeah.
But my point is that's a dirt road. Now, back there somewhere, there showed a access off of Cleveland Road. So Cleveland Road's gonna have to be upgraded.
Yeah, there's no access
We
on
don't have
Cleveland
any
Road.
access.
And that, yeah, there's no access on Cleveland
Okay,
Road.
but
This is,
the other thing is that, and there's gonna be a traffic thing, and that's gonna be addressed at some other future time, but I know coming out of my apartment, my development, there's a crossover. For the drivers being as conscientious and good as they are, they'll come up. I'll be sitting there waiting for 15 minutes for the traffic to get through. I start going through, some guy that just came up will make a U-turn right in front of me. We've had several very close accidents. I don't know how many accidents there are, and I'm sure that study is ultimately going to take place. So if there's going to be another one there, that's going to increase that, because everybody goes, oops, it makes a U-turn to go back to. The other thing is that across the street there's a residence, and there's another residence down the road there. Are those, once we open this gate, are those houses, or is that property down the road, are they going to be, all of a sudden, I'm going to have a 7-Eleven across from my...
so, let me see if I can address that. So, and that's a fair question. What kind of precedent is this going to set? And that's one reason I've spent so much time talking about the unique nature of this veterinary practice. The fact that it is already servicing the population that is there. It is not a commercial use. It is a non-residential office use. So I can't imagine that it's going to be creating precedent. First of all, there's not that many other parcels on Conroy Windermere that would even be open for any type of redevelopment, but
right
this
down
is
the
a
street,
very, I know there's a couple, but again, it's very, this is a very unique, I know when we first met with staff, they agreed that, yes, it's a vet clinic, it's an agricultural service, it is in the rural settlement. Vet services traditionally go with the rural settlement. So I think it has a very limited precedential value. Or I wouldn't be involved in this.
And what services are going to be supplied? Are you going to be boarding animals there? Are you going to be keeping animals that are sick, that are overnight?
We're only treating them for illness and stuff. There's no boarding at all. Sometimes they stay in the hospital at night if they're really ill. They're on medical treatment. They're not making any noise. They're sitting inside, but they're not going to be boarded up.
Basically, the same thing that you have.
So we have in the
street.
We have a
You're going to transport it here in a larger thing, but is that open to change? And I'm asking for what's in the future, honey. I don't know.
No,
nobody knows. We don't know if we're going to be.
It could be
I
boarding.
start. Yes, I
But
can.
ultimately, it could be, you could request for boarding, and it would be very helpful to some people, but my house is right
There.
Right, and I understand that.
and I have enough trouble with my neighbor in the back of me.
Dog barking. No, we will address that.
Here.
I've talked about grenades, I've talked about tear gas. The point being is that I'm not interested sitting out on my lanai, right?
Listen to
There's no
dogs.
buffer, and trying to have a beer and crushing the
No,
mud.
it's not going to happen like that. No, the building is going to be. We have a contractor there, to talk about the soundproofing of the building. The building I have now is about 6,000 square foot building in Longwood. It's like in the middle of residences. I wanted to bring a picture today. I couldn't do it. It was too busy.
Say that again.
It's among the. It's right in the residential this area. We have houses behind all over the place. and they cannot hear dog bark. You can be in my office, sitting in my office, you cannot hear dog bark from the back. We have like soundproofing all over inside and outside. I spend 12 hours in the clinic, and so do these people, and we cannot hear dogs barking inside all day. And we
So
don't
there's not going to be any dog barking, there's not going to be any.
You cannot hear a thing.
There's no improvement to Cleveland. It's yet to find out how you're going to get the people into that.
From the Conroy Windermere,
From
yes.
westbound Conroy,
Right.
and that's going to be determined
But the
by
traffic studies and things like that.
the guys that they,
Right.
but the point being is that you're, all of those things can change.
Yeah, they can change. I mean, we have to comply with all the traffic rules and all those different things.
Yeah, so we're opening some doors here.
Yes,
that-
but it's not final. I mean, they have to still make sure that their traffic is okay and things like that. And
This is what his clinic looks like.
now,
Yeah. Okay. Just one way.
No, I get it.
It
think
looks like a
the other
beautiful
pictures-
home.
no, I
It's
started the
current.
clinic along with 30 years ago in 1992. It's a 6,000 square foot building. I have not expanded it. It was too big for me back then. I built it too big. I said, build the biggest one you can. So we have 4 doctors now in the practice. We're still fine. We don't need to expand anything. I do own the lot next door over there just in case I needed something. So I've never needed 30 years of the growth. So this is a small practice we have here in Windermere. We have about 2,000 clients here. We are in a 2,000 square foot facility right now. We are just now to the point where we can't, we need a bigger space, you know. So it's not going to be in the next 20 years that I need a 20,000 square foot building. A lot of the clinics, I would never need it. Yeah. Or anybody. Because I can tell you the history. And there's a Sand Lake Road Animal Clinic, there's a Windermere Clinic. They've been there for 50 years. They're the same size. The Windermere Clinic, they have expanded now another 1,000 square foot because it needs some extra of 30 years.
Yeah,
We're not
yeah, the one down on Pocket Island is now expanding.
Yeah, they're little.
And right next to it, there was nothing.
Yeah.
It was a place where they took them out and let them poop.
Right.
Now it's a building.
Yeah, so
is that going to happen here?
You know, we have way more land, we have way more buildings. I don't need that kind of building. We can build up to 9,000 square foot, but my needs are only 4,000 to 5,000 right now. That's all I need right now. So in the future, we can expand to whatever is allowed on the land, but we're never going to need 30,000 square foot. And there's no hospital in Orlando that's that big. We're a veterinary clinic. We're 1-2 doctor show, not like a Advantage Health that like they need thousands of things. We're just little things. So it's a small clinic. So basically, we are treating animals with no boarding. They're in the shopping center right now. Then right next to my door to me is the doctor's office, behind the children's place. So they are living with us. They don't have any problem with dogs barking. They don't hear a thing from my office to their office. So it's not, and the soundproofing, they are here to talk about the soundproofing. We need it for ourselves. So I need to practice inside the building without dogs barking at me all day. So
Well, yeah, and I understand that, and you've got to build. Right now you're renting space and that cannot expand or it cannot have
it's 2,000 square foot.
cannot have borders.
I've been in there for 10 years now, so my lease ends next year, December.
But what I'm saying is you cannot expand, you cannot add
much.
because that's an existing structure. This, you can.
We can add, we're not gonna grow, but you can build up to 9,000-10,000 square foot, but I'm need only 4,000 right now to build. And then if there's a need, we will expand a little bit just in case we need, but I don't think we'll be 20,000 square foot building ever. And that's not even allowed on this piece of land. I mean, there's only a certain amount of building they allow on this land. And I'm planning on preserving a lot of the trees. There's so many trees over there. I love trees. My other practice, you can see we have like 20 oak trees on my practice right now, the ones we're in. So we're going to preserve all those things around it so that it looks like, we can park cars properly and things like that. And the building's going to blend in. We're planning on doing like a barn style building where it kind of looks like a house. It's not looking like a big, shopping center or anything like that. That's my thing to do. That's all my managers, they all want a barn type look, like, so we all own animals. I own horses also. So it's like one of those things. We are that kind of people. So we're not looking to build like some kind of tower looking thing, and there's just going to be, like she showed the pictures of the buildings, that kind of style. So it's going to blend in the community. There's going to be trees all around it. We're going to pull everything out. I mean, if somebody else develops it, they may take everything out. We're planning on keeping a lot of that. and I own the lot behind it. I cannot add that to, okay, I want that lot now added because it's a residential lot. They're not gonna let me just add in and build another building on it. So I might thought about to build a house or something on it so that, it's just, it buffers the rest of the community from this clinic.
I want to add something in here. So building size on the lot would be restricted by our floor area ratio. So in typical areas of Orange County, the floor area ratio is 0.50, and you do that by multiplying 0.50 by the square footage of the site. In the rural settlements, it's 0.15, so it's significantly lower. Additionally, the site would be restricted by the building setbacks as well as landscape buffer requirements because you would have an office use, essentially a non-residential use, buffering a residentially zoned lots. So there's a number of things that would limit his ability to expand beyond, what you would.
Those are buildings, but does a kennel, does a concrete slab with a fence
Well, staff
constitute a building?
Nothing outdoors.
No, nothing outdoors.
They're not allowed anything
Staff has
I'm Goldard.
we have to move on, but staff has restrictions that we're proposing that would restrict outdoor kennel runs. So
And we don't
Yes.
board outdoor kennel.
Yeah.
But we don't want animals to be outside.
we have to move on because we only have limited time tonight. So sir, I'm gonna go with you in the gray shirt next.
Yeah, let me say this. We've been through the expensive presentations and all these studies. We've already been through this. I've been here 40 years and the neighborhood behind me is 50 years. I'm trying to preserve a 50-year-old neighborhood culture. And I think we've already send them to public schools and teaching them how to ride bikes. The thing that's happened before, Grand Oak Village was right down there. All these things were there. All these rules were there that weren't going to change until they asked to get them changed. And they got changed. It's like someone telling me, I'm a little pregnant and my baby bump isn't going to grow. Well, guess what? The baby bump grew, they extended hours, then they had a sports bar because they went back and to the council who changed, we can change this rule because it's already been changed, it's already been commercial or residential. The key is you got pregnant and you can't stop it.
Yeah.
And then that's uncontrolled growth that we have here. We're going to be just like Sand Lake.
Oh, yeah.
In Sand Lake, you can't get out there. There's people trying to fight what's going on. There's homeless people all over the place. But when you tell them about these rules and they're not going to change, you may be genuine in what you're saying, but what about the next guy that you sell it to? Or the next guy that inherits it? You can't stop it.
We're building animal hospitals, gonna look like animals with kennels inside. Nobody wants to buy these kind of buildings.
Look, let me just finish. I'm just saying, regardless of what you're saying now, we know what the zoning game is. We've been through it.
Yeah.
And these presentations were better than yours.
Yes.
And I tell you something, all these things, and by that time, the next thing is all of a sudden, they had a meeting and no one went and it got changed. And had another meeting. Next thing you know, and guess what? When the noise of that sports bar was going on, we complained. And guess what? There's nothing we can do about it. The people who changed it in the council weren't there to say, oh, you got to stop this. And then I had to get a lawyer to do it? I'm saying rules change because that's the name of the zoning game. And most places I know, that I've been in 8 states over 40 years, most veterinary clinics are in some established commercial
area.
Yeah, they do to build on. They don't come into a neighborhood and change. That's actually backwards. It's sort of like this is really like the tail wagging the dog. It shouldn't be like that. I'm just saying we live in this neighborhood that I want my kids. I'm going through generations watching my kids grow, and ride bikes and I want my kids to hopefully come back here and have the same chances I do. And I tell you something, we're becoming the next Sand Lake. I mean, it is just crazy there. And I tell you something, all these promises, all these rules are changeable. That's period. I don't care what you say. And the thing is, and if you're as good of a businessman as you are, the next thing that you're treating is the psychology of these animals. The biggest thing that's going on with people going back to work is separation anxiety. And I tell you something, we have dealt with Pet Paradise. That's in Wintergarden and Pet Suites of America. and they house, and sooner or later, someone's gonna come up to the businesses. You walk in there, the veterinary clinic is here, but they got 275 dogs. Now, we're not gonna do that, but how about the next guy? Can he change it? You already got pregnant, and so guess what? My baby wants growing. You change that, and they tell you, it's not only sickness to the dogs, it's the, you're saying they're not gonna go Cleveland Avenue? That's a public road, it's not maintained. And every time FedEx or UPS, I feel I live right on the backside. I can feel a little vibration. They stop privatization of that road because of a lot of reasons. For one, it's engineering problems. And the idea is that, so that's one thing. We had a flooding issue. But the next thing is, can it take people trying to get, I'm trying to get out of that traffic, like the other day. It was packed like a parking lot. Yep. And they're gonna go drive straight through our neighborhood.
I'm trying to keep, so.
Speed through the neighborhood.
Hold on, everyone. Can we please stop the outburst? Because we just need everyone to raise their hand and we'll get to everyone one at a time. But hold on, I'm gonna ask everyone just to keep their comments, keep them to 2 or 3 minutes because we only have till 7 and I'm gonna try to get around to the room.
Just let me finish.
Okay.
And then now we're talking about sick animals. And I tell you this, something that we learned, even now with the monkeypox, they're telling you you've got to isolate yourself and not even allow your animals to get there because it's based on close contact. And the idea is that you're going to bring sick animals into an area where there is no sickness. And don't tell me there are no other commercial lots that you could have gone to. Okay. Why do that?
I'm sorry, we're going to you next. I'm going to go to you and then you. So I'm trying to get everyone in without. Okay, yes, ma'am.
My thing is, when he purchased the property, he knew it was residential, but he didn't care about that. He knew he wanted to put that there.
Yep.
So therefore, he's already wanting to change things. And down the road, I know he will try to change things. And as far as the buffer, I don't buy that for 1 second.
Yep.
Because if you look at this, he already extending the driveway all the way to the edge next to that water. And it's just as easy to go to the next property. And once, exactly what you said, once one thing is changed, it's just so much easier to change the next. We want it residential. I don't care, subdivide this 1.5, actually 1 3/4 property, barely, into smaller and have several single-family homes there. Not a problem. I don't need a business there. There's no need. And as far as needs for veterans, they're all over the place.
Yep.
You cannot drive 2 miles without running into another veterinarian office. Point being, his is here, the next one is right where you showed
It's
right,
Randall's.
exactly. So we don't want it. Why do we have to fight over this? This is residential.
Why are we even here?
We don't need to,
Why are we
we don't
even here?
want it changed. We just don't want it changed. We want it to stay residential. And you can say whatever you want. I'm gonna, since you brought Longwood up, I'm gonna go to Longwood. Longwood property, yes, he put one part of it, he put his veterinarian office. The next part he bought, he pulled permits to have condos put on there.
Yep.
Hello, it's residential, but all of a sudden, everything can be changed and it will be changed.
Yep.
Guarantee you.
Sorry.
Zoning.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, sir.
We're in the neighborhood behind Darnell. If the vet comes through, there's gonna be more traffic that comes through. There's no sidewalks. You've already got more traffic. Conroy's already got too much traffic. I think everybody that's here is opposed to this because, I mean, it's already standstill traffic. We've got pictures, you guys are all face it every night. It's true.
I'll address your question, sir. The reason why you're here tonight is because the applicant submitted a rezoning and land use application.
Right, but
This is let me finish, sir.
Yeah.
All right? this is part of our transparent process
Yeah.
to involve the community. So this is simply an informational meeting. So, and I'll also add that staff in our recommendation, we're not recommending approval for this, but we're still here because it's an informational meeting. It's part of the process. It's an opportunity for the applicant to hear what the community thinks and for staff to hear. And so no one's trying to shove this down anyone's throats. It's actually part of our planning review process with regards to rezoning and land use applications.
When will the staff report be available?
It actually was just published today. So what I can do, if you leave your email address there, I can actually send you the link which will have the agenda and the staff report. I have a copy of it here, but it's one of only 2 that I printed just leaving the office today. So we always print the Wednesday, Thursday prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. So
If for some reason there's
yeah.
just get in touch with my office and we'll get.
Yes, sure. Okay.
I live off Carolina Drive on that property right where it ends, really close to where you plan on putting your office. I moved from Apopka to that area because I looked for that specifically, that rural quietness to bring up my children. Had I known that that was going to happen, I would not even consider buying that. Second, if I ever put my house up for sale, it would depreciate because nobody is going to want to buy a house next to a veterinarian. So you don't know that you can't promise us that you're not going to have the dogs outside barking unless you put that in your contract or whatever you want to do. Because I have little ones, and the last thing I want to do, they're ready to wake up at certain hours, and I don't want the dogs barking, and I'm not being able to sleep. And really the reason is it's a rural place, and we just want to keep it that way.
So-
We want our community to stay that way.
And before you leave, because I was going to wrap up, and this is very important, this is part of why we're here tonight, is to talk about the type of conditions that make sense. And based upon the feedback, ma'am, if you could just stay for a minute, because this is very important. I think, and we have a list of conditions: no boarding, no outdoor dog runs, no access on Cleveland. The architectural style will remain residential. There would be a traffic study required before any building permits can be issued. And again, that will inform how they will address the exact location of that access point. It's not going to be on Cleveland. It's going to be buffered, but it could potentially be even further away, depending on how that maps out with the access point.
What about the fact that her property will depreciate no matter what you say right now? Her property is going to depreciate by thousands and thousands of dollars.
And I guess
It's going to quantify that.
I guess I just want to leave you with one last thought. You can see the complexity of this process to get not only a rezoning, but a comprehensive plan amendment. So if he thought for a nanosecond that he was going to need to have more land, he would be putting that in right now. The reason why he bought the buffer is because we understand this is a heavy lift. We're asking you all to recognize the fact that he's not a developer, he's not a speculator. This is a small business. These are people that are here today in their scrubs. They've been working with dogs and cats all day in your community, and they have
I have a dog and a cat, I'm sorry, and I know that really, I don't need anybody there. So when you're trying to do that, the dog and cat thing, we all are dog and cat owners, so we have a heart for that.
I understand,
We
but
understand
I'm just saying, you know, he is an
It's a rural community,
Right.
and we really want to.
And how many clients do you have a day? Please tell us how many clients you have a day.
Well, you said 2,000, and that's 5 a day, but he would be double.
No, he probably has hundreds a day.
Well, that's if they show up once.
Okay, Kelly, do you want to answer that? Okay.
So we went through a process trying to put a mother-in-law suite on our property, and we were told that the zoning 101, not allowed. Zoning 101, not allowed. I mean,
But
we did that years ago and we were denied.
Well, just so you know, we do. That may have been years ago. Just so you know, just for your own information, we do have regulations now that do allow for accessory dwelling units. So I would suggest we can get. I'd be happy to give you the new regulations pertaining to that. So, in case
The rules change. And they got keep saying, this isn't forever, whatever she's saying today isn't forever.
I understand.
And so-
I was just trying to help him out because he said he wanted to do a mother-in-law suite.
Well, no,
It's
we We went another way.
You went another way.
The neighborhood.
No, but what I'm trying to say is if you were still looking to do that, we have that.
We never got to answer the question. This is Kelly McIntyre, the office manager, and she's
I'm
going
the
to
practice manager for both hospitals. I've been working with Dr. Singh for 8 years. He's a wonderful veterinarian, and I understand what all of you are saying. We're hearing you, and we want to be able to address all your concerns. As far as 100 patients a day, it's not physically possible for us to see 100 patients a day. We probably have on average about 10 to 15 that come in a day, because we have to spend time with them. You cannot see 100 patients in a day. We don't have enough staff to see 100 patients in a day, and we definitely don't have a big enough building to see 100 patients a day. Even at the Longwood facility, at our Longwood hospital, which is a much bigger hospital, we're averaging about 50 to 60 patients a day with 4 doctors. So it's not 100 patients. The traffic is not like that. We have about 2 appointments every hour right now that come in.
When you
Just to-
change
just
the
to
rules
clarify
that you allow boarding, Pet Paradise has 100 people come.
So we're not Pet Paradise.
I know, but you could be, and you could
We're
become.
not Pet. There's no money.
We put it that in writing,
Boarding
that
is
we're not
it's
boarding.
Oh, I tell you, if you
something-
saw the prices
There's no-
there, that's a.
But sir, we're not Pet Paradise.
You
Please
really
don't
could
compare us.
be.
We're not a boarding
You
facility.
could be.
We provide
Miss,
surgery
yes.
as well as medical care for the
Thank you.
pets,
Thank you,
not boarding.
Yes, hi, miss. Yes.
The last meeting, community meeting that we came, was canceled. That notice said pet boarding, and I've been seeing changes.
We never had pet boarding on that. No, ma'am.
There was never
No.
pet boarding.
No. It's always been for staff. The application came in for a veterinary
I
clinic.
think I looked that up. What about pet care, that pet? when I-
Yes, ma'am.
Doesn't it say any boarding on your
Let's see how we are on time.
What pet care?
We're getting close. Yes, ma'am.
I have
Love-N-Care Animal
two,
Hospital and Windermere.
I have really 3 questions. One of them is Edmondson Lane, which is the extension of Carolina Avenue that lady just bought a house on. Is that a county road or a private driveway? Because it's not improved. When they paved the rest of the neighborhood in Hunter Estates, that part still has what I would consider kind of a poor,
You're talking about the eastern side of that?
The western side.
The western side.
and that would be going up toward the back of this piece of property.
Go to that picture of that.
So I don't know if it's private, it's not shown on this,
Yeah, I'd have to check with
because
transportation.
that
That's
Keep going.
Can I answer it? Show I have the answer.
There you go.
Edmondson Lane,
Yeah.
that woman's home is where 13 or 14 is, or 15.
One.
When you go to the right, that's where Carolina is.
7, 8.
So does Edmondson Lane, a private driveway to her home, because it's a fairly long piece of road, or is it a public road that at one point or another can be used for traffic to come and go?
So I think I can answer. The part in blue, it's vacated right of way. So it would not be used to access this property, and we can put no access on Cleveland or Edmondson.
I don't need
You
to
can
know
see
what
it's
you
not
want to
designed.
do. What I want to know right now,
Yeah.
is it public or is it private? And the other question I
Okay.
have that goes with this is the plot of land where the primary vet area is going to be and the improved landscaping and all that. Is it going to be walled off, or is that going to be
That can
kind
be
of
something.
open to the places around it?
So that could be a restriction placed on the property, you know, if let's say the commission was leaning towards approving it and individuals showed up and said, well, if you're going to approve it, we'd at least like a wall. It's something that could be suggested.
So right now then, the way I understand it, from Conroy Road is where the folks would be going in and out of the parking lot.
That's correct.
So if there were no other breaks in a wall, they really wouldn't have access, people that were coming to exit through Hunter Space. And so I just want to know picture is what we're dealing with. One other thing for you, sir. I have dogs and cats, I know cats and dogs, and I love animals. Do you just practice with dogs and cats, or do you also do agricultural, since veterinarians are accepted in rural estates? You do agricultural type animals too? No?
We
Okay,
do
I just wanted to clarify
Or
that.
some of the pets, you know, like the rabbits, guinea pigs.
Diane, do you have an answer?
And I can't find a vet for
I'm
my
sorry.
chickens.
We have a doctor that does that though.
At the Longwood.
Hold on, we have an answer from
I know.
folks. Diana,
It's
would you?
the chicken.
Okay, the answer to Edmondson is that it is right of way that was conveyed to the county, but it is unopened and unimproved right of way. And it will only be open if there's a residential home that is landlocked or a parcel that is landlocked that requires access to, and it can only be open by that potential resident that would like to occupy the parcel. But it is public land, but it's not being used for the purpose of that it was conveyed to the county for, which is for roadway and access. Okay, all right, just curious.
Sir, in the back.
Okay. I asked why are we here? Of course I understand why we're here and I appreciate that. I also respect the doctor, okay? You know, he's, I'm sure, a great vet. You know, he's obviously been very successful, so I respect that. But he bought that land specifically, years ago, specifically to put a business in. I bought my house, like the woman said, I'm Richard's neighbor, I'm Lois's neighbor. We live in the neighborhood in back of this. Right now, it's a highway now. So now we're talking about having a business. Like if somebody would have told me when I bought my property, 20 years ago, oh yeah, you know what? They might put a vet clinic there. I said, well, I don't want to buy a house there. So when I say, why are we here? It's like the gentleman said. It's ridiculous to me that it's even a possibility of putting a business in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Sure, it's on Conroy Windermere Road, which is a parking lot. Now we're going to have to put another cut through in there. I mean, to me, I can't even fathom that it's even a possibility. The doctor bought the property specifically to put a business in there. Well, we don't want a business in there. I would go through the room and ask anybody to stand up and say, you know what? I want a vet clinic in the middle of my residential rural neighborhood. Keyword rural. I mean, I can't even fathom that. It's even a possibility that he can even put in the application. So okay. And I know that, the county rules and stuff, and I respect that. But I would, ask one person to stand up here. Every person in this room, except the people in the front, are against this. And, we're going to fight it tooth and nail. It's ridiculous. So I'm sorry, and I will, end my rant.
I'll respond from a county planning staff perspective, and that is every property owner in the county has the ability to request for a land use change or a rezoning change. It's your property, you have property rights.
Right.
Now, when the doctor bought the property, there was no guarantee that in the future he would get approved for a land use or a rezoning change. So anyone in the county, whether you're the biggest developer or, a local vet, and you buy a piece of property and you say to yourself, I want to put this certain use there, or I want to rezone it or change the land use, there's no guarantee that can happen because you have to go through this process. So even if you came in for an application and we said, there is no chance that you're going to get this approved, you have a right to submit your application. So if you want to spend the money for a rezoning and the money for a land use and the money for conceptual plans and a land use attorney, or to put the time and effort yourself in, you have that right as a property owner to do it. Even if sitting there, it makes no sense to you, they have a right to do so. And so we have a plan and a process in place for them to do that.
Well, now it's after 7 p.m. Okay, the meeting is wrapping up. So now let's talk about next Thursday. Is it 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning in downtown Orlando? I'm going to be there. Will all these people be here? Probably not, because they have to work for a living. Or maybe they don't have time to go to downtown Orlando in rush hour at 9 a.m. So what happens at that meeting? If I go there and I'm vocally opposed to it, is that just taking down notes? I mean, what happens? What is the approval or rejection process from here on out?
So next Thursday, I will be sending out a link. If you signed in form, I'll be happy to send the link. Share it with your neighbors. I can give you my email address. I can also send it to you that way. So
but what happens?
Sure. Let me go into that.
Right.
So the meeting does start at 9. This item will not be at 9 a.m. So they usually have the rezoning, the standalone rezoning application. So
This one is toward the front,
oh, it is toward the front, but it won't be right at 9.
I believe. Look at the
We'll look at the agenda.
Yeah.
Typically, we have the rezoning start at 9
But it's
o'clock.
open to the public.
It's open to the public, so staff will give a presentation. We will go through a little more in-depth presentation, and in our presentation, we will reflect tonight's meeting. Because we've printed the staff report, I can't state what happened tonight in the staff report. However, we will reflect in our presentation this meeting tonight, the tone of the meeting, the feedback we've received, the concerns expressed by the applicants, as well as the amount of feedback forms or phone calls or emails that we receive. We reflect all of that in our presentation, whether we're recommending approval or denial on an application. We do that so that the board itself has an understanding of where the community stands, but also where staff stands in giving their presentation. The applicant will have a chance to make a presentation, and then they open it up to public comment.
And
so,
if I can just insert a little bit here, the District 1 appointee to the Zoning Commission will get a report from us also, because we just try to make sure that we are a conduit of information in this process. So if there's something between now and then that you need to continue to relay, that it is all open, and I know it's hard to get downtown, and that's why we really work hard to get out here for these. Yeah. But we do need to make sure that information gets to that Planning and Zoning Commission. So, we consider that, my office considers that a very big part of our job, which means if we walk out of here and you think of something else, please share it with us, okay?
So, sir, I believe your email is on the public notice.
Exactly.
So we can send our opinion.
Yep.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yep.
And to us too. I mean, I think
District 1.
That's correct. District 1 at OCFL.net. Absolutely.
We have some business cards up here too. So it's at.
What is your name? What is your name of your business? Is it Luv-N-Care?
Luv-N-Care.
Your Luv-N-Care is the name of your business?
Yes, sir.
Your site says cat boarding, dog daycare, and other pet boarding. Advanced.
Where does it say?
That's
Yeah, we do board and dog boarding.
I'm just saying.
So again,
It's right here, it says cat boarding, dog daycare, and other pet boarding.
Okay, so let's hit the timeout button for a second, because I think that
We're
wrapping up.
we're going to wrap up, and not just that, but I think it's really important that first of all, I want to thank you all again for being here, because it is critical. It's not ambiguous, the way that the community feels and the important parts and components of this. So I want to really thank you for that. I know that there are probably more detailed questions, and that's okay. That's what this is. That's what we're here for. That's what you're here for, and hopefully we can get all of those. The public meeting for the PZC, that is not my board. Those are appointees. So it is not the same thing as the Board of County Commission. If it gets past the PZC, that's the next stop. So public engagement continues to be part of the process. And so, this isn't the last opportunity to ask a question or to think of something into dialogue with the applicant or with staff. So I just want to make sure. I know that sometimes these feel like we are either, being rushed, or once you get out, you think, I didn't get that last question in, and that's okay. We'll continue to answer them.
Yeah. I also want to note that we give a summary during our presentation. I'm not going to go through every single letter and read it out, but we do a summary of the concerns that the community expressed, not only here tonight, but also any correspondence that I receive, whether it's a phone call, an email, a fax, a letter, whether I get a lot of them mailed back in too. So, your concerns will be referenced and expressed in staff's presentation. And then
I encourage everyone to send an email to address it.
And just to follow up on what Chris said, we wanted to thank you all for being here tonight. We will be following up with the conditions of approval that we're willing to agree to, as I outlined.
Sure.
So that'll be part of their presentation too. And those will be binding conditions of approval. So thank you all very much.
Everybody here knows the premise of going to have this zoning thing is that these guys that are on the board are in the community. They are not politicians. They are business people. They are people that are involved in the community. They will have a presentation by the legal department. the petitioner, and they will also open it up to questions. After they make their recommendation, there is 30 days between then and when the county will actually take it in front of the board, or around 30 days or so. So there's time to gather your thoughts if there's a ruling that you don't like, all right? I just let you know that a vast majority of the things that are brought in front of the board by county staff, they don't approve of it. They don't want it to happen, and they get overruled. It happens a lot with the county staff. They do their job, and they're doing a great job at this, but just to let you know, there is a 50-50 chance that just because the staff says we don't want it, that doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be approved.
Every application is reviewed individually. We have another application similar to this in District 1 over in Gotha. And we're recommending approval on that one because of our individual review of that application versus this one.
It's actually very different. Yeah.
Planning staff.
Just because you guys deny it, or just because you guys don't suggest to be approved, doesn't mean that the board's going to say,
Exactly. There's plenty of times where we may recommend approval on something and the board sees otherwise, or because the first public hearing they're a recommending body, so they're going to make a recommendation to the board. So, and of course they have the flexibility there through their recommendation if they were to choose to, let's say, recommend approval on this, to have a discussion to either amend what staff is proposing for restrictions, because we did put restrictions in place in the event they do recommend approval on this, even though we are recommending that they do not adopt the land use and deny. The board. So staff makes a recommendation through their staff report. The local planning agency then makes a recommendation to the board. And then the final public hearing goes before the board, and it's the mayor and the county commissioners. Commissioners and the mayor. They make the final determination.